January 30th, 1943. Luftwaffe Fighter Command Headquarters, Berlin. Oberst Josef Priller read the latest intelligence assessment on the British aircraft the RAF called the Mosquito, with a mixture of amusement and disbelief. The report, compiled from reconnaissance photos and interrogations of RAF prisoners, described an aircraft that defied military logic. The de Havilland Mosquito is constructed primarily of wood, plywood, and balsa composites, the assessment stated. This construction method indicates British desperation due to aluminum shortages. The wooden airframe limits performance and durability. The aircraft carries no defensive armament, relying entirely on speed for survival. Maximum speed estimated at 380 to 400 kilometers per hour, adequate for a reconnaissance aircraft, but insufficient to evade our fighters. Overall assessment: minimal threat to German defenses. Priller circled the phrase, constructed primarily of wood, and laughed. The British are so desperate they're building airplanes from furniture, he told his staff. These wooden wonders will burn nicely when we catch them. What Priller didn't know, what the entire Luftwaffe command structure couldn't comprehend, was that at that precise moment, 3 Mosquitoes were approaching Berlin at 560 kilometers per hour, 160 kilometers per hour faster than the intelligence estimate, and faster than any German fighter could intercept at their altitude. In 2 hours, those wooden aircraft would interrupt Reich Minister Joseph Goebbels' radio broadcast celebrating the 10th anniversary of Hitler's rise to power, dropping bombs on Berlin in broad daylight with such speed and precision that no German fighter would even get close. And over the next 2 years, these supposedly primitive wooden aircraft would fly over 28,000 combat sorties, lose only 254 aircraft, achieve the lowest loss rate of any Allied bomber, and drive the Luftwaffe to near madness trying to intercept aircraft that flew too fast to catch and too high to reach. This is the story of how British ingenuity defeated German preconceptions, how a wooden aircraft became the most versatile combat plane of World War II, and how the Mosquito proved that innovation matters more than conventional materials. The de Havilland Mosquito emerged from the same 1938 British Air Ministry specification that produced the failed Avro Manchester. But where other manufacturers proposed conventional metal bombers bristling with defensive guns, de Havilland's chief designer Geoffrey de Havilland proposed something radical: an unarmed bomber built entirely of wood, relying on speed alone for defense. The Air Ministry was skeptical. Wood was an antiquated material for aircraft construction. Modern warplanes used aluminum. Wooden aircraft were slower, heavier, and weaker than metal aircraft. Removing defensive guns seemed suicidal. How could a bomber survive without defending itself? De Havilland's response was elegant. The bomber will not need guns because it won't be caught. By eliminating defensive armament, gun turrets, and armor, we save 2,000 pounds. That weight saved becomes speed. Speed becomes survival. A bomber that can't be intercepted doesn't need guns. The mathematics supported him. A conventional bomber like the Wellington carried 4,500 pounds of guns, ammunition, turrets, and armor. This weight reduced speed to 235 miles per hour, making it vulnerable to fighters. Remove that weight, add powerful Rolls-Royce Merlin engines, create a streamlined airframe, and the result would be a bomber that could outrun any fighter in existence. The Air Ministry remained unconvinced, but authorized a prototype. De Havilland Aircraft Company began construction in October 1939. The prototype, designated E.0234, first flew on November 25, 1940. Test pilot Geoffrey de Havilland Jr. reported that the aircraft exceeded all performance predictions. The Mosquito could reach 392 miles per hour at 22,000 feet, faster than the Spitfire Mk-V fighter that was entering service. It could climb to 30,000 feet, higher than most German fighters could effectively operate. Most remarkably, it handled beautifully despite being constructed of wood. The plywood and balsa sandwich construction was lighter and stronger than designers had predicted. The wooden construction wasn't a primitive compromise. It was sophisticated engineering. The fuselage was built in 2 halves, each molded in massive concrete forms. Strips of birch plywood were laid up with balsa wood cores, glued with casein adhesive, and cured under pressure and heat. The result was a composite material stronger and lighter than aluminum, with properties that wouldn't be fully appreciated until modern carbon fiber construction decades later. The wings used similar construction, plywood skins over wooden spars and ribs, creating structures that could withstand 10G loads, twice what most metal aircraft could survive. The wood had additional advantages. It didn't show up well on German radar, it didn't corrode, it could absorb battle damage that would tear metal aircraft apart, and it could be manufactured by furniture makers, freeing up aluminum and skilled metalworkers for other aircraft. German intelligence, observing the Mosquito's entry into service in late 1941, filed assessments that revealed fundamental misunderstanding of what the Havilland had created. A Luftwaffe technical intelligence report from January 1942 stated, "The Mosquito represents British improvisation due to material shortages. Wooden construction limits maximum speed and operational ceiling. The aircraft is suitable for reconnaissance and light bombing, but poses minimal threat to German defenses. Our Bf-109 and Fw-190 fighters possess superior speed and can intercept these aircraft routinely." Every conclusion was wrong. The Mosquito wasn't improvisation, it was innovation. The wooden construction didn't limit performance, it enabled performance. And German fighters couldn't intercept Mosquitoes routinely. They couldn't intercept them at all in most conditions. The first indication that German assessments were catastrophically wrong came on September 25, 1941, when a Mosquito of No. 105 Squadron flew a photo reconnaissance mission over France at 23,000 feet. 3 Bf-109 fighters attempted interception. The Mosquito simply accelerated away, climbing to 26,000 feet, where the German fighters couldn't follow. The Germans fired from maximum range, rounds fell harmlessly short, and watched the wooden aircraft disappear into the distance. The pilot, Flying Officer Rupert Clerk, reported, "The 109s tried to catch us, but couldn't. We weren't even at maximum speed, just cruising. When they got close, I advanced throttles and pulled away. They couldn't climb with us. At our altitude, we had 40 miles per hour speed advantage." The Jerry pilots must have been quite frustrated. The frustration was just beginning. By early 1942, Mosquitoes were flying regular reconnaissance missions deep into Germany, photographing targets from altitudes and speeds that made interception nearly impossible. Luftwaffe fighter pilots filed increasingly desperate reports about the wooden aircraft that appeared on radar, approached at high altitude, photographed their targets, and disappeared before fighters could climb to intercept. Oberleutnant Heinz Knoke, a skilled fighter pilot who would eventually shoot down 33 Allied aircraft, described his first attempted Mosquito interception in March 1942. "We received vector to British reconnaissance aircraft at 7,000 meters over Wilhelmshaven. We climbed at maximum rate, but by the time we reached altitude, the Tommy was gone. We saw contrails ahead of us, but we couldn't close the distance. The aircraft was faster than our 109s at that altitude. We pursued for 10 minutes, achieved no firing position, and broke off when fuel became critical. We reported to control that the Mosquito is uncatchable at operational altitude." The bomber variant entered service in May 1942, and German contempt began transforming into concern. On the night of May 31st to June 1st, 1942, for Mosquitoes joined the 1,000 bomber raid on Cologne. While conventional bombers lumbered toward the target at 200 miles per hour, vulnerable to flak and fighters, the Mosquitoes raced ahead at 300 plus mph, bombed accurately from medium altitude, and returned home before most German fighters were even airborne. The loss rates told the story clearly. The 1,000 bomber raid on Cologne lost 41 aircraft, 3.9% loss rate. The 4 Mosquitoes returned without damage. Over the following months, as Mosquito operations expanded, their loss rates remained consistently below 1%, unprecedented for bomber operations. The January 30th, 1943 raid on Berlin demonstrated the Mosquito's capabilities with embarrassing clarity for the Luftwaffe. 3 Mosquitos of No. 105 Squadron took off from Marham, England, at 1,100 hours with orders to bomb Berlin during Joseph Goebbels' radio broadcast celebrating Hitler's 10th anniversary of taking power. The Mosquitos flew at 28,000 feet across the North Sea, approaching Berlin from the north. German radar detected them, 3 aircraft, high altitude, high speed. Fighters scrambled to intercept. But the Mosquitos were at 28,000 feet and cruising at 350 miles per hour. By the time German fighters reached 20,000 feet, the Mosquitos were already over Berlin. At 1,600 hours precisely, as Goebbels spoke to millions of radio listeners across Germany, the Mosquitos released their bombs. The explosions were audible over the radio broadcast. Goebbels paused mid-sentence, regained composure, and continued speaking. But the damage was done. Berlin's air defenses, which had destroyed hundreds of RAF heavy bombers over 2 years, had been penetrated in daylight by 3 wooden aircraft that flew faster than German fighters could intercept. Reichsmarschall Hermann Göring, commander of the Luftwaffe, was reportedly furious. In a meeting recorded by staff officers, Göring demanded to know how British aircraft constructed of wood could penetrate German air defenses in daylight. The response from technical officers was that the Mosquito's performance exceeded intelligence estimates by substantial margins. The aircraft could fly higher and faster than any German fighter at equivalent altitude. Göring's response became infamous. In 1940, I could at least be proud of a fighter force that was superior to anything the enemy had. Now we have reached a point where we must fear British wooden aircraft. It makes me furious when I see the Mosquito. I turn green and yellow with envy. The British, who can afford aluminum better than we can knock together a beautiful wooden aircraft that every piano factory over there is building, and they give it a speed which they have now increased yet again. There is nothing the British do not have. They have the geniuses, and we have the nincompoops. The statement, while not entirely accurate, piano factories weren't building Mosquitos, though furniture manufacturers were, captured Göring's recognition that German intelligence had catastrophically underestimated British engineering capabilities. The wooden construction wasn't a sign of British desperation. It was a sign of British ingenuity that German military thinking had been too rigid to imagine. The Mosquito's versatility exceeded even its speed and altitude advantages. The basic airframe proved adaptable to multiple roles: photo reconnaissance, light bomber, pathfinder, night fighter, fighter bomber, anti-shipping strike, and target marking. No other aircraft in World War II successfully performed so many different missions. The night fighter variant, equipped with AI Mk4 radar, became the most successful Allied night fighter of the war. Mosquito night fighters shot down hundreds of German bombers and, ironically, specialized in hunting the German night fighters that hunted Allied bombers. The Mosquito could outclimb, outturn, and outrun the Bf-110 and Ju-88 night fighters at all altitudes. Wing Commander Brant Burbridge, the RAF's top-scoring night fighter pilot with 21 confirmed kills, flew Mosquitos exclusively. His assessment was simple. The Mosquito was the perfect night fighter, fast enough to catch anything, maneuverable enough to stay with evasive targets, powerful enough to destroy anything we hit. The wooden construction was actually an advantage, quiet compared to metal aircraft, and didn't reflect moonlight like aluminum. Jerry pilots often didn't know we were there until we opened fire. The anti-shipping strike variant carried a 57mm Mollins gun, a 6-pound cannon capable of destroying U-boats and surface vessels. Mosquitos of Coastal Command sank or damaged hundreds of German ships, attacking at wave top height where their speed made them nearly impossible to hit with defensive fire. But it was in the bomber role that the Mosquito most thoroughly demolished German preconceptions. The bomber variants could carry 4,000 pounds of bombs, the same as a B-17 Flying Fortress, at speeds approaching 400 miles per hour. They flew during daylight, at altitudes where flak was ineffective and German fighters struggled to intercept. The precision bombing capability exceeded anything heavy bombers achieved until late war. A formation of Mosquitos bombing from 28,000 feet routinely put bombs within 300 yards of the aiming point, accuracy that American B-17s, bombing from similar altitude through heavy flak and fighter opposition, rarely achieved. Operation Jericho, executed on February 18, 1944, demonstrated Mosquito precision at low level. 19 Mosquitoes of No. 140 Wing attacked Amiens prison in occupied France, where the Gestapo held French resistance fighters scheduled for execution. The mission required breaching the prison walls precisely, allowing prisoners to escape while minimizing casualties among prisoners. The Mosquitoes approached at 50 feet, pulled up to 100 feet for bomb release, and struck the prison walls with extraordinary accuracy. The outer wall was breached, the guard quarters were destroyed, and over 250 prisoners escaped. The operation, filmed by a camera-equipped Mosquito, became one of the most famous precision strikes of the war. German fighter pilots, ordered to intercept Mosquito formations, developed a grudging respect mixed with frustration for the wooden aircraft that consistently outperformed their supposedly superior metal fighters. Oberleutnant Walther Dahl, who commanded JG 300 in defense of Berlin, filed reports that revealed the psychological impact of the Mosquito threat. The Mosquito can appear at any time, day or night, at altitudes we cannot effectively patrol, Dahl reported in June 1944. They bomb with precision that heavy bombers cannot achieve. They photograph our defenses at will. Our fighters can occasionally catch them at lower altitudes or during landing approach, but in operational conditions at height, they are effectively invulnerable. The psychological effect on pilots is significant. There is a sense that we cannot defend against these aircraft regardless of our skill or effort. The loss rates supported Dahl's assessment. Of 7,781 Mosquitoes built during the war, 254 were lost to enemy action, a loss rate of 3.2%. By comparison, RAF heavy bombers suffered loss rates approaching 5%, and some operations exceeded 10%. The Mosquito's combination of speed, altitude capability, and wooden construction that absorbed damage better than metal created the most survivable bomber of World War II. The wooden construction's durability surprised everyone, including the Havilland engineers. Mosquitoes returned from missions with damage that would have downed metal aircraft. Cannon shells that would have torn aluminum structures apart punched through plywood, leaving holes that didn't compromise structural integrity. Flak fragments that would have ripped metal wings shredded plywood skins, but left internal structure intact. Flight Lieutenant Maurice Briggs described returning from a raid with over 200 flak holes in his Mosquito. The aircraft looked like Swiss cheese, holes everywhere. But nothing vital was hit. The wooden structure just absorbed the fragments. We flew 400 miles home, landed normally, and the ground crew had it patched and flying again in 2 days. In a metal aircraft, that damage would have caused structural failure. The ease of repair was another unexpected advantage. Damaged wooden structures could be repaired by carpenters using standard woodworking tools and techniques. Metal aircraft required specialized tools, welding equipment, and metal fabrication skills. Mosquitoes could be repaired at forward bases with minimal equipment. Some repairs were made with wood scrounged locally. On one occasion, a damaged Mosquito in North Africa was repaired using wood from a salvaged packing crate. By 1944, the Mosquito had become the RAF's primary precision strike aircraft. The famous raid on the Gestapo headquarters in Copenhagen on March 21, 1945, involved 18 Mosquitoes flying at rooftop height through the center of Copenhagen to strike a specific building. The attack destroyed the Gestapo headquarters with minimal collateral damage, though tragically, one Mosquito crashed into a school, killing 86 children and 18 adults. The Pathfinder role revolutionized RAF night bombing accuracy. Mosquitoes marked targets with colored flares, guiding heavy bomber streams to precise aiming points. The oboe navigation system, which could be installed only in fast aircraft that could fly above German jamming altitude, turned Mosquitoes into precision target markers. Bombing accuracy improved dramatically when Mosquito Pathfinders marked targets. German night fighter crews hunting British bomber streams learned to dread the presence of Mosquito night fighters. The wooden aircraft could be anywhere in the bomber stream, invisible on radar until they opened fire. The psychological pressure was intense. Pursue the bombers and risk being shot down by unseen Mosquito escorts, or avoid the bombers and face disciplinary action for failing to engage. Oberstleutnant Heinz-Wolfgang Schnaufer, Germany's top-scoring night fighter ace with 121 victories, was one of the few German pilots to consistently shoot down Mosquitos. His tactics involved avoiding direct pursuit, where the Mosquito's speed advantage was decisive, and instead positioning ahead of the bomber stream, waiting for Mosquitos to pass, then attacking from below and behind before they could accelerate away. The Mosquito is the most dangerous aircraft we face, Schnaufer wrote in his combat diary. Faster than our fighters, more maneuverable than we expect from a bomber, armed with cannon that can destroy us in one burst. The wooden construction makes them difficult to damage. I have put 20mm shells into Mosquitos and watched them continue flying. Only strikes on engines or crew are reliably lethal. Most frustrating is that when they detect us, they simply accelerate and climb away. We cannot follow. The production of wooden Mosquitos demonstrated British industrial adaptability. While aluminum was rationed and reserved for heavy bombers and fighters, wood was abundant. De Havilland established production facilities across Britain, Canada, and Australia. Furniture manufacturers, boat builders, and piano makers contributed components. The dispersed production meant that German bombing couldn't significantly disrupt Mosquito output. The manufacturing process was labor-intensive, but didn't require skilled metalworkers or specialized machine tools. Semi-skilled workers, trained in weeks rather than years, could build Mosquitos. Women comprised a significant portion of the workforce. Mosquito girls became celebrated in British propaganda, though the work was demanding and the casein glue caused skin problems for many workers. Total Mosquito production reached 7,781 aircraft, with peak production of 400 per month in 1944. Canadian-built Mosquitos used different woods, Canadian birch instead of British birch, Douglas fir instead of spruce, but performance was identical. Australian-built Mosquitos adapted to tropical conditions, using different adhesives that could withstand heat and humidity. The versatility of the basic design allowed rapid adaptation to new roles. When British intelligence discovered German V-1 flying bomb development, Mosquitos were quickly modified for high-speed interception. When German U-boats began using snorkel breathing tubes to stay submerged longer, Mosquitos received radar to hunt them. When the Luftwaffe introduced jets in 1944, Mosquitos received more powerful engines to maintain speed advantage. The FBWI fighter-bomber variant could carry 4,000 pounds of bombs for 20mm cannon and 4.303 machine guns, making it simultaneously the fastest bomber and one of the most heavily armed fighters in the RAF. This variant attacked German targets in daylight with impunity, flying at speeds that made interception nearly impossible. The railway campaign in France before D-Day relied heavily on Mosquitos. Flying at low altitude, attacking in pairs, Mosquitos destroyed locomotives, cut rail lines, and attacked marshalling yards with a precision that heavy bombers couldn't match. The German rail network in France was so disrupted that military movements became nearly impossible, a critical factor in preventing German reinforcements from reaching Normandy after the invasion. By late 1944, German fighter pilots had learned that attempting to intercept Mosquitos was often futile. The standing orders were to engage only under favorable conditions, Mosquitos at low altitude, during landing approach, or damaged and slowed. Otherwise, pilots were instructed to conserve fuel and ammunition for easier targets. The psychological impact of this admission, that Luftwaffe fighters should avoid engaging specific Allied aircraft, was devastating to morale. German propaganda had insisted on Luftwaffe superiority. Now German pilots were being ordered not to fight wooden British aircraft because the fight was unwinnable. The Mosquito's success influenced post-war aircraft design profoundly. The concept of the hot ship, an unarmed aircraft relying on speed for survival, became standard for reconnaissance aircraft. The use of composite materials, initially dismissed as primitive, led to modern carbon fiber construction. The multi-role adaptability demonstrated that specialized aircraft weren't always necessary. A good basic design could be adapted to many missions. The statistics support the Mosquito's claim as possibly the most effective combat aircraft of World War II. Loss rate of 3.2%, lowest of any bomber. Service ceiling of 37,000 feet, higher than most fighters. Maximum speed of 415 miles per hour, faster than most fighters at operational altitude. Bomb load of 4,000 pounds, equal to heavy bombers. Combat radius of 1,300 miles with drop tanks, exceeding most fighters. And all of this accomplished with a wooden airframe that German intelligence had dismissed as primitive improvisation. The German assessment evolved from mockery to respect to fear over the course of 3 years. By 1945, Mosquito was recognized in Luftwaffe intelligence documents as the most versatile and effective Allied aircraft, combining speed, altitude performance, and adaptability that no German aircraft can match across all roles. The wooden construction initially thought to be a weakness has proven to be sophisticated engineering that we underestimated catastrophically. The final Mosquito combat mission was flown on May 21, 1945, 2 weeks after German surrender, a reconnaissance flight over Norway. The aircraft then transitioned to post-war roles, target towing, training, and in some air forces, frontline service into the 1950s. The last operational Mosquitos were retired in 1963, 18 years after the war ended, testament to the design's enduring capability. In 1947, Air Chief Marshal Sir Arthur Bomber Harris, who had commanded RAF Bomber Command throughout the strategic bombing campaign, was asked which aircraft contributed most to Allied victory. His answer was immediate: the Mosquito. It could do everything: reconnaissance, bombing, pathfinding, night fighting, ground attack. It did all of them better than specialized aircraft. It had the lowest loss rate of any bomber. And it was made of wood, which meant we could build them without consuming aluminum needed for heavy bombers. The Mosquito was proof that cleverness beats brute force, that speed beats armor, and that British engineering could outthink German engineering when we stopped trying to match them conventionally and started thinking innovatively. The Germans thought the Mosquito was made of wood because they were desperate. They were half right. It was made of wood. But the desperation was German desperation to intercept it, shoot it down, and stop it from bombing Berlin in broad daylight, while Göring raged about wooden British aircraft that made him green and yellow with envy. The Mosquito proved that materials don't determine capability. Design determines capability. Wood can be better than aluminum if the wood is engineered properly. An unarmed aircraft can be more survivable than a heavily defended aircraft if speed makes guns unnecessary. And an aircraft initially dismissed by the enemy as primitive improvisation can become the most feared aircraft in their skies when that primitive construction enables performance the enemy's metal aircraft cannot match. Geoffrey de Havilland's wooden wonder bombed Berlin faster than German fighters could intercept it. That simple fact demolished years of German technical assumptions, destroyed their confidence in air superiority, and proved that sometimes the most innovative solution is the one that abandons conventional wisdom entirely. The Mosquito wasn't held back by being made of wood. It succeeded because it was made of wood, and because British engineers understood that innovation matters more than tradition, results matter more than materials, and the best aircraft is the one that does the job, regardless of what it's made from.